One of the key points that the candidates have been trying to run on is their ability to beat President Donald Trump. And many took this debate to show their skill in that regard by focusing many of their attacks on media mogul Mike Bloomberg, who made his debut onto the stage. And it was one to forget, really. The Democratic candidates took the former mayor of New York City to task on his record as well as his status as a billionaire, which came up time after time.
In order to beat Donald Trump, we're going to need the largest voter turnout in the history of the United States. Mr. Bloomberg had policies in New York City of stop and frisk, which went after African-American and Latino people in an outrageous way. That is not a way you're going to grow voter turnout.
Look, I'll support whoever the Democratic nominee is, but understand this. Democrats take a huge risk if we just substitute one arrogant billionaire for another.
I've been told many times to wait my turn and to step aside. And I'm not going to do that now, and I'm not going to do that because a campaign memo from Mayor Bloomberg said this morning that the only way that we get a nominee is if we step aside for him.
I can't think of a ways that would make it easier for Donald Trump to get reelected than listening to this conversation. It's ridiculous.
The debate was also an opportunity for candidates to revitalize their campaigns. And after a poor showing in Iowa and New Hampshire, Senator Elizabeth Warren showed a renewed vigor in the debate, calling out her opponents on a variety of issues from healthcare to climate change. So the debate is also quite important because the candidates will now begin entering into states and constituencies with a more diverse voter base. So the candidates will now need to focus and hone in on making sure that their platform will resonate with a more diverse audience if they want to secure that Democratic nomination and take on Trump.
Well, for more, let's go to Jeffrey Tucker, editorial director at the American Institute for Economic Research. He joins us now from Great Barrington, Massachusetts. Good to have you back with us, Jeffrey. Now, ahead of the debate, we were talking about how Mike Bloomberg was riding high in the polls. How do you think he's emerged from this debate?
Well, I think the thing to look at is the betting odds. I tend to trust the betting odds more than these polls, which people lie to pollsters all the time and they haven't been worth much for a number of years. But the betting odds are very interesting. He went from having a 32% chance to capturing the nomination almost neck and neck with Sanders, and he just plummeted off a cliff, and he's down to 15% for capturing the nomination. And so it's a pretty devastating night for Bloomberg overall. And if you look at the general election, I'll tell you who really won that debate last night is the existing president. And now he's looking at 60% chance for getting 4 more years. So I think the problem is that what it takes to win this Democratic nomination is not the same thing that it's going to take to win the general election. I mean, Bloomberg has a few good lines last night calling out the socialists, for example, among his opponents. But I don't know how much that means to anybody who is voting for the Democratic Party nowadays. Mayor Pete did pretty well last night, but nobody else really did well except Sanders, who's the easy favorite.
Now, looking ahead to the upcoming Nevada caucuses, who do you think will emerge victorious from that?
Well, I'm guessing that Sanders is going to do pretty well. It's a fascinating thing. I don't know. From my point of view, it looks to me like the Democrats are just sort of suicidal at this point. I mean, and many people disagree with me, but it seems to me that Trump's going to have an easy time defeating a self-described socialist in the general election, which Trump likes to call him a communist, right? So that turns out to be very effective rhetoric among the American people. So Sanders might well capture the nomination. And you probably know this, but the Democratic Party, the elites in the Democratic Party are very, very worried about this guy, and probably for good reason. As Mayor Pete said last night, he wants to burn the party down. He's a real mess maker out there, but I don't know. At this point, he seems to be the popular favorite. I'm guessing he's going to emerge on top. We'll see how much damage this has done to Bloomberg over the long term. He could come back after this debate, realize he needs to start taking this stuff a little more seriously. He was ill-prepared, to say the least, last night, and he could come out swinging. He's a real fighter, and he does have a lot of political experience. Maybe not on the national stage, but in New York. And as some people have sung in the past, if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. So we'll see. I wouldn't give up on Bloomberg just yet.
Interesting. Yes, it is early days, isn't it? Jeffrey Tucker, always a pleasure. Thank you.